Hey friends, welcome to episode 108 of the Heat Press for Profit podcast. Thank you for tuning in here live with us. Of course, we are live every single Thursday, and we are going to go to a bi-weekly schedule here coming up, so don't come looking for us every week, but we'll tell you when we're going live on the Thursdays. So twice a month we go live here on the Heat Press for Profit page, the Facebook group, if you're not already a member. Of course, over on both the Facebook pages for Stalls and Transfer Express, both the Stalls TV and Transfer Express YouTube pages, as well as over on LinkedIn or Instagram. So wherever you are hanging out on a Thursday afternoon, you can find the Heat Press for Profit podcast, and I am Dave, and you could chat in real time. I see Virgil is the first here to comment today. Greetings from Lawton, Oklahoma. So greetings. Thank you for tuning in. This podcast is built to help inspire you as a apparel decorator, regardless of your skill level, whether you're just getting started, whether you've been decorating for a while and you just need something to listen to on a Thursday afternoon as you're printing t-shirts. Well, we could be your soundtrack for that. Always happy to help. My name is Dave. I have over 15 years of experience in the apparel decorating industry, from learning how to screen print on my kitchen table way back when in 2009, all the way through working through several different commercial screen printing shops. I like to bring the knowledge, the know-how, the experience, and even the perspective from seeing how a whole bunch of people have done it over the years, and bring that experience to you. We do have this episode here today promoted as powering up production with the Stampinator Advantage, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we were unable to get Jeff on the podcast this week. So we are going to hold this topic because if you are interested in the Stampinator, so super important for so many businesses, especially if you are a screen printer. And you heard me mention, I learned how to screen print all way back when. The Stampinator would have fixed so many issues for me, but also with the rise of heat transfers, it really could turn the equipment that maybe already exists in your shop to just absolutely crush it with high capacity heat transfer application. I see our first question coming in, and before we get too deep into our content here today for the podcast, happy to answer them. This is Bland Blassit. I'm pronouncing this. Kings and Queens Clothing. We'll say LLC. Hello, you have Plastisol transfer. Yes, of course, at Stalls and Transfer Express, we do have direct-to-film transfers, Plastisol transfers, hybrid transfers, silicone transfers, now brand new from Transfer Express. So some really great options, glow-in-the-dark transfers, puff transfers, reflective transfers, twills, right? So like real stitched twill with a sport stitch, the laser-etched sim stitch, and pre-aligned twill as well if you just want that crisp, clean edge, or maybe you're going to be doing the applique and stitch it on yourself. Take that option, but you don't need all of this equipment to really get ready to go with decorating apparel, right? So much that you have the option to use both at Stalls and Transfer Express. So lots of stuff to get into today. If we do have Jeff pop in, we're going to talk about the Stampinator if we can. But one thing I want to kind of start with here, right, is number one, if you're not already a member of the Heat Press for Profit Facebook page, head on over to Facebook, right, and join that Facebook page right now. It is tons of like-minded decorators just like you. And that community blows me away every single day. How everybody is so willing to help each other out, regardless if it's, hey, what's some pricing advice on this? Hey, do you guys know an option? Customer asked about this specific, garment. Does anybody know where to get it? Does anybody know a good option for a pocket tee or whatever it might be, right? Hey, looking at investing in new equipment, looking at, does anybody have any testimonials for equipment that they have and they absolutely love? Whatever it may be, it is decorators just like you so willing to help out and really build a community that uplifts everybody, really helping you with your confidence, boosting your capabilities, everything. So go over to join that Facebook group if you haven't. It's called Heat Press for Profit, just the name of this podcast too. So you could go ahead and join that Facebook group for absolutely free. We are here to help. But one thing I want to talk about today is what I wish I knew before I got started, or like if I were to start today, what would I do differently? So I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we kind of brainstormed a whole bunch of questions that I have right up on over here. And if you have your own questions too, of like very specifically about getting started, or maybe really kind of hitting the gas to your sales method, or reducing any, production mistakes, those misprints, maybe even improving efficiencies, right? I want to be able to help you out with anything you may need to really help you boost your confidence, boost your capabilities, and just contribute to the overall success of you and your decorating business. So definitely here to help. But everybody kind of has that moment that they wish they could do over, right? Like when you think about it and how you started and all the way back in the day, you're like, man, if I had the opportunity, I would do this differently. So, whether that be a bad press, the misprints, losing money on a job pricing, or just ruining like a really expensive garment. I've been there. I think the most expensive garment I ever ruined was man, I don't know if I should say this out loud. It was a print shop that I worked at, and we were doing hot market. So you're going to get a Dave story time today. Impromptu off the cuff. But we were doing what we called stadium jackets, and they were really super high end, like performance wear, like think a quarter zip, right? But like nice roping on it, a super premium like heather texture in these like really nice performance garments. It was for a very large customer of ours at the time, not Stalls, not Transfer Express, although I do still think we work with them. So I'm not going to mention any names. They are, let's just say, one of the absolute leaders in sports merchandising and licensing, right? So regardless of where you go buy a jersey for your favorite major league team, it's probably powered by them, right? So it was a huge deal. It was what we called hot market. So it was immediately following a Super Bowl. And so it was maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were printing these really nice stadium jackets for, I don't know, one of Tom Brady's Super Bowls. I don't know how many rings he ended up having, right? But it was one of those. But essentially, we were just slopping ink all over them. A screen blew out, and we missed it, and it printed for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. Slopping ink all over on the inside. We were doing the inside tag print, nice like 6-color metallic print, Lombardi trophy right on the front, and that had to be quite possibly the most painful of mistakes I think I've ever been a part of in the apparel decorating industry. So please don't do that. Catch it right away. Fix the mistake, because I believe that each one of those jackets blank was $90 or $95, like wholesale blank cost. They retailed for $200 or $300 on the shelves at major retailers hours after they left the shop. So yeah, that's one thing. That we're going to save you some of that trouble here today. So that the first kind of section here that I want to talk about is, like if I could go back and really get into doing decorating again, kind of what's the biggest misconception, that you had right when you were getting started, getting into it. And I think we do have Jeff here in the studio with us. Maybe figuring it out. Maybe. Almost. All right. I'm going to wait for Jeff to see if he could join in with us. Just apologies, a little bit of technical difficulties here today. So want to make sure that we're all set, and we'll get into talking. And is that Jeff? We got Jeff?
We got him.
Jeff, how you doing today, bud?
Good. How about you?
Doing fantastic. So great to have you join us here today. I was just kind of talking about some kind of if I could go back. And before we give you a big proper introduction and have us tell you about yourself, what's one mistake that you could think back in your time? Because I know you've been in the apparel decorating industry for so long. What's one mistake that if you went back and like that still kind of haunts you to this day? Do you have one of those where it's like, if you could have a redo or a reset button for any of your decorating career, what would it be? I told a really embarrassing story about how I ruined some really nice stadium jackets for a Super Bowl winning team.
Well, I can take you back. We printed 3,500 t-shirts for a lacrosse event, And, we send the art approval over to the customer for them to approve it. They approved it. And we always state, please read all text. We are artists. We're not, writers. We spelled Westminster was spelt wrong. It had an I missing. And they wanted to reprint the entire batch of shirts. And I said, look, nobody's going to know. People are coming from all over. They're not going to know that the I's missing. Well, thankfully, we actually spelt it where it was, W-E space or W space E space. And we went back. I went in on a Saturday and I put the I in every single t-shirt.
Saved it.
I saved it. It was awesome. They were like, I basically told them we reprinted them. They're like, what do you do with the other shirts? I was like, we're just going to dispose of them. They had no idea. They thought it looked great. But if I told them I did that, then they would have complained and been like, what do you mean you did that? Like, that's not what we wanted. We wanted a reprint.
Nope. Never know. That's awesome.
So after that, it was always like, look, 3 checks, right? And then the guys in the screen room, it was like, look, if you guys find a spelling mistake, I'll treat you to lunch or I'll do something. We need for you guys to keep an eye on this. Well, the screen room guy was good friends with the artist. So next thing you know, like every other week, they're getting free lunches because they're making spelling mistakes purposely, right? So I'm like, all right, guys, this needs to end.
That's it. Subway budget's out of control.
Subway is over.
Oh, that's too funny. That's the fun we have in the apparel decorating industry. And I want to give you a formal introduction here for all of the listeners here tuning in live. And of course, if you have questions at all for Jeff or myself, let us know right in the comments section. And joining us here on the show today is the innovator and inventor behind Stampinator, Jeff Fiorucci. Welcome to the podcast, Jeff. And before we dive in and talk about the Stampinator, let's say proper, I do want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to those out in our audience who may not know you. I know a lot of folks in the industry know you, just how prevalent you've been at industry events and trade shows, and being an all-around great, helpful guy. But we'd love to hear about you and just a little bit of your background in the industry as it relates to apparel decorating, or I always like the origin stories. How'd you get started?
I'll give you the origin story. It's actually pretty good. I've given it a few times. So I'm Jeff. I'm the founder and creator of the Stampinator. I'm a longtime screen printer. I started printing at the age of 19, right after high school. I tried college. Didn't work out for me. I knew art and T-shirts was the direction I wanted to go. But back then we didn't have Google and all the good tools that we have today. So I was doing a lot of mountain biking, and that's something that I like to do still to this day. And my buddy and I came up with a brand called Free Ride Fuckwear. So that was our clothing line. That's what we were going to start printing and selling. So we actually made stencils, and we went to Goodwill and bought clothing, and we cut the clothing up, and we spray painted the stencil on the pant leg or the shirt that we had from Goodwill. And back then we were wearing like button down Oxfords and things like that because they didn't have all the gear that you have today, right? And look, who wants to wear that when you're mountain biking anyway? You want to wear like the ripped up clothing anyway because you're going to shred it. So we did that, and we would go to mountain bike venues, and next thing you know, we're making $500-600 in a weekend, and we were happy as can be. This is awesome. So I took that into, okay, I need to learn how to actually screen print. So I went and worked for this company. It was about an hour and 20-minute drive from my house. I went in, they said, do you know how to print? I said, yeah. And they're like, all right, we want you to set up a job. I'm like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, right? So it was a manual press, and I'm watching the other guy, and they gave me a one color. So I put it on the press, and I kind of had a little bit of knowledge of it, but never really pulled a squeegee. I printed a shirt, and the guy was like, you're hired. So I worked for them for about a little over a year, and I had the artist, him and I had become pretty good friends. And I said, look, I want to start my own screen printing company, but I want to do my own brand. And he's like, I said, I have a logo. It's MMP Multi-Mind Productions. And he worked on a logo for me, and I had some business cards made, and I must have dropped one on the floor or outside of where I was. And the shop, that they had the screen print on the backside. Another building was the embroidery. And the two owners called me in their office, and I can still see it to this day. I can see myself walking in, right? 21 years old, basically. I walk in, and they're like, "Hey, are you looking to start your own company?" And I was like, I said, "Yeah, I've thought about it." And they slide me my business cards, like comes across the desk, like,
Oh,
today's your
no.
last day. We don't want competitors working for us.
Oh,
So that was my last day there. And I went to Martin Screen Supply, bought a manual press. I I went to Home Depot. I bought the light bulbs. I took an old vacuum cleaner apart, made my own exposure unit. And I was using a flash dryer to cure the shirts when I was printing. And so I saved up to get, picked I got a Lawson dryer, actually, electric dryer. And I started printing t-shirts at that point. So the week after I got all the equipment, I went back to the same place I worked for, and I took like 3 contract people that came with me, and I started printing all their stuff. So it was that's kind of my background, how I got started. Then I had met a guy, and we became partners. We had a company, Just Extreme Graphics, and we had a lacrosse line called Just Laxon, and we were in a number of retail stores. We were in a short-lived period of Sports Authority. The Sports Authority was kind of going under. The employees bought it, and then it went under. And but yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this. I'm 52 and still printing. And I always say it's a love-hate relationship in this industry. You either love it or you hate it. And I love it. Like, don't get me wrong, I get stressed out sometimes, but I just enjoy the people. I was on the other side for a long time as a printer.
hmm
And with the creation of the Stampinators, put me on the other side, and it's allowed me to meet so many great people. I mean, I have a lot of friends in the industry that I talk to on a regular basis, and it's it's rewarding in all ways, like, as a screen printer and developing something for screen printers. People said, you shouldn't be doing that. You should focus on screen printing. You're not a manufacturer. And it was a tough thing to get into, but I'm pretty persistent. I don't
Yeah.
hold back, and I move forward. And I got a family I got to provide for, and I got 3 girls, and they have a private school education. I got to work hard to
Yeah.
take care of them.
Absolutely. Well, you touched on a few things there that I just want to kind of unpack. Number one, where there's a will, there's a way, right? Like that determination. I don't think there's any other way to put it other than like passion, right? And I know like we've kind of nerded out in conversations about the passion behind the art and design and the art of screen printing, right? Because I still have like a deep rooted love of like that artist in me too, that like, I still like screen printing, but I like making money. And that's why I use a lot of heat transfers these days too. And I also just don't have the space. So there's like, going back when I learned too, there was no way to like, we didn't have the YouTube library that there is
Absolutely.
now. Like I was watching, somebody just camcorder taped DVD of how to screen print, and it's like, there's so much that goes into all of it, right? Even to those, the stories of how we were starting, like what the mistake is, when we get rolling. But another thing you kind of touched on there too is the community, right? I love
Huge community. Huge.
I love our industry. I feel like it's one of the last great like creative industries out there, right? Like, yes, there's creatives out in Hollywood making movies, and there's artists in every city you could find, but not everybody has a Monet hanging on the wall. Every single person that I know has t-shirts in their closet, and they have their own art collection, if you will, right? Like t-shirts have to be the most widely collected form of art. There's an artist that put that together, right? Like, and so I think it's so incredible that I get to, still be in a creative industry. However many years later, you're still in the creative industry. You still get to, we make things, right? And it's so cool. But it sounds like you've kind of already had, you've had a hands-on approach to almost everything. From, you mentioned stencils, and when you say stencils, like cardboard X-Acto knife,
Yeah,
stencils,
we
spray
would,
paint.
we would get like a wax paper and cut that out, and it was. I have one of the first T-shirts that I printed for my company, MMP Multi Mind Productions. It was on a Haynes BFT, and I still have it, and I have it framed. So, I got a lot of good things. I have, I have things that people have given me that I just don't let go. I keep and hang on to, a little keepsake type thing. But it's just, it's. I had, I have the last place I installed a Stampinator. I got a T-shirt, and he basically has one here. Everything's gonna be all white because of the stamp, and when we hit it, the white ink popped. It's. And then I had another guy that gave me a T-shirt, and it was about the size of the print. So he made some comment with it was good. So it's like I meet so many different people, and everyone loves the industry. They love their business, and I got to tell you, my hat goes out to a lot of shops because there's a lot of people out there struggling in the industry too. And they want to be
Mhm.
successful. It's a hard business to get into, and one of the downsides to this industry is when you get into it and you're starting out small, you become an owner operator, and you don't understand or realize, that how do I get out of the position I'm in, right? And you got to hire competent people that you feel comfortable with that are going to be able to be successful for you, right? But that's when you're in. You got to make sure you're hiring under those conditions that they are successful, and they are going to bring um, a sense of workmanship to your company versus just hiring somebody to bring them in because you're desperate and you just throw them in that position, right?
Yeah, you just need a
So
body there. It's not helping you build revenue. It's not actively helping you grow your business. That's refreshing to hear. Yeah.
yeah, so for me, when I had, God, I had three partners, and we were doing almost right around 10 million a year. We were in the resort business. We had CLC collegiate licensing. We were doing prep schools, private schools, you name it, we were doing it. And then our corporate accounts, um, running 7 embroidery machines, running 4 automatic presses, managing 10 salespeople, all these things. One thing that I haven't had since I left there was 2015 is I miss having all those employees. I haven't really built my screen print business back up. I do enough that allows me to survive and pay my bills because I was focused on Stampinator.
Hmm.
And I felt like I needed to do both. I needed to print and be able to build stamps so people can see exactly how we utilize the Stampinator, with every job that we're running.
Yeah.
So, but where I'm going with this is when you have good employees, you tend to miss the ones that are good when they leave, and you don't realize how good they are until you lose them. And in my case, I left them, right? I left and started my own thing. And a lot of them, I worked with them for 17, between 17 and 20 years. And when you have a team like that, you earn that loyalty of, the respect, right? On
Hmm.
both ends, and I miss it, and I still kind of contemplate whether do I build up the screen print business again and get back, and because I do love the business. I do. I mean, it's fun, but what I like most is giving somebody an opportunity for a job. Like
Yeah.
I used to feel guilty about people working for me and they were only an hourly employee, and then I realized one day, you know what? I If someone wants to excel within their position, there's opportunities in my company that you can be a printer, you can be a catcher, you can move up into sales if you feel like you're sales savvy, where you can make really good money. I realize that you can't push somebody any more than where they are to get to the next level. They have to have that within them. And some people
Hmm.
are just happy with making 15 or $20 an hour, right?
Hmm.
So but it was hard for me to always understand that because I always felt bad. Like I feel like, hey, this person, I want to give them more, but I can't because it's just that position is that position. But it's a rewarding industry. It's rewarding, all around. I do enjoy it. I don't like today and the last couple of days because we start at 6 and I'll go to about 12 or 1 in the shop. But it's entirely, the heat just is devastating, especially with the humidity.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a fun industry.
I love it, and you touched on something there too that like almost every shop I've worked at through my time in the industry uh, allows for that. I feel like everybody like it's just good vibes all around, and everybody is kind of looking out to develop. Hey, I worked with a lot of like kids straight out of high school who were like it was their first job and they knew they wanted to be creative or they wanted to be a tattoo artist. It's like, yeah, I'll sling ink on t-shirts, no problem. And then they really start growing into it and they go, hey, I could see this as an avenue to like, I'm really interested in how we're putting this on screens, and they start learning about more steps. And then like there's so much involved in the entire process. But you were talking about the Stampinator a little bit,
Yep.
which I think is the perfect segue to kind of jump right into it. Tell our audience a little bit about what the Stampinator is, and the main benefits that it brings to a screen printer, apparel decorator, or somebody using heat transfers.
Yeah, so I'll take it back to right around like 2014. Hey, hold on one sec. Kev, are you on the phone? Can you tell UPS I have two boxes, one standing up with a circle in it? He's out back. Yeah, he's out back now. Sorry about that.
Hey,
You can you
that's
can chop that
business.
out.
That's business
Um,
right there.
so so I want to go back to like 2014 when I had the idea for the Stampinator. We were doing a ton of transfers for Under Armour on backpacks, and we were doing their B2B program. So my one partner at the time had a connection with Under Armour, and that's how I got connected. Well, we had the hat machines doing transfers right on the center of the pocket of backpacks, and then we had some things where we had a job with foil, and I was like, there's got to be a more efficient way of making this work. And we were doing reversibles with 0 to 600 on 600 reversibles, all four sides. It's 2,400 numbers you're putting on, right? Or
Yeah.
prints. So I developed the Stampinator, and the first time we ran 5,000 backpacks, we knocked them out in like less than 8 hours. And it was amazing. And then we started doing transfers and reversibles. So we would order transfer express numbers and they would come in. We print the two color name, put the transfer on. At the end, I had the stamp. We would stamp it, cure the shirt, and peel the transfer off, and we had the number. And we were
All in
knocking
one
all
go.
four sides out in 6 hours. It was unbelievable, because a lot of the prints were just like a 1 and 2 color print.
Hmm.
So from there, it was by like right around 2016. I had tested it for like a year and a half, and redeveloped the Stampinator. The first stamp weighed 75 pounds, and made some changes to get it down to right around 50. And we came in at 48.5 pounds, which was really nice. Um, so once we did all that, I went to my first trade show, and that was in Fort Worth. And we're in Fort Worth, Texas. I have a 10 by 10 booth with a projection screen showing all the videos, everything I'm doing with all the samples that we hit and how it mats down the fibers and you're applying transfers. And back then this little guy, Ryan Ed always selling him on videos all the time. And I'm like, he came over and he's like, hey, I've been seeing all these people in your booth. Like, what do you have? And he's like, I'm impressed. I like it. Does it fit on a rock press? And I was like, back then, I was like, I don't know, let's see. So we threw in the rock press, and that's how I connected with Ryan Moore. And it was I was like, it was funny because I always watch Ryan's videos, and I'm just like, oh, what's this, this guy? What's he know about screen printing? And but Ryan is a great marketer.
Hmm.
And he believed in the product, and having that connection with him and working with him ever since. And here we are in 2025, and still working with Ryan. I love everyone at Rock and Ryanette. I feel like they're like my extended family. And I got to tell you, without Ryan, I don't know if I would have really made an impact in the industry. He believed in the product. He saw that there was a need for it, and that's how I got started. And it's been a fun journey. It's people that always think like, oh, you're going to be rich, you're going to be rich. It's not a get rich product I developed. It's kind of pricey, but it's a tool for your business. And we're in a niche industry,
Yeah.
and it's a great product. And and people love it. When people are down, when screen printers are down with their Stampinator and they can't use it because the cord ripped out, or something happened to it, I don't know, let's just say a Teflon sheet ripped and they don't have their extra Teflon, they literally will stop printing until they get it replaced, because they don't want to make any, print anything without the Stampinator. So
Yeah.
once you learn how to use it, you get acclimated to it. It's a great tool within your shop, so but yeah, that's so going into your question, when you asked about, how you utilize the stamp and what it's for, the stamp, always look at it, it's like a, 5-in-1 product, right? It mats fibers on your underbase. It cures your underbase. You can do stamp cure at the end of the print run. You can do inline transfers, and most importantly, it makes your prints better. That's our tagline on the side of the stamp: makes your prints better. So one of the great things about the stamp is, you'll never burn or scorch a t-shirt, especially if you have bay doors that are open. You get a breeze that comes through. Your flashes tend to give you a scorch if you're doing that white tee or the ash tee. You'll never
Mhm.
get that with the stamp. But we are stamping and running our underbase on certain jobs. I would say we can stamp in 1.5 seconds and stamp flash the underbase
And go
and
right
run
on to
about
your color.
and go right onto your color. Yep. And what's great about it is the smoothness that you receive from the stamp. It almost looks like a transfer, because it's just, you have all those fibers, everything's matted down. You don't have any of the fibrillation where those fibers are want to kind of dance up through the ink.
Yep. One of my old bosses who ran one of the shops that I worked at, he would always tell the story about how terrible he was when he first started screen printing, and hadn't figured out off contact, and like was getting the cat tonguing on every print where like it would feel straight up like sandpaper every single time. And so after going through the conveyor, he would pull them all off and just hit them with a heat press real quick to smooth them all down. Just to
Yeah, well,
make them softer. And that was way back at probably the early 90s at that point.
hey, that was even in the late 2000s. People were still doing that. So it was like companies like retailers would want, if you had an order for like J.C. Penney's or Sears, all those big box stores back in the day, right? It got to a point where I want to say like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, they called it heat tapping. They wanted every shirt needed to be heat tapped. So people were heat pressing shirts, big shops that were doing all the retail. And back then, you would look at the shirt, you would say, "Oh, that's a transfer," and it wasn't. It was heat tapped after it was printed.
Yep. Smooth it all down nice and easy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's definitely just an interesting, you identified a need that was kind of already there, and like you built that. I would say a huge efficiency into the process with developing the Stampinator. It very interesting to hear how you kind of brought it to market. You hear some of these stories where like, you bring somebody into your shop and what's that? And you're like, oh, well, that's this thing I made. Could I get one too? And
Yeah.
then, but taking it to a show and like trying to actively kind of get it out there, coupling with Ryan, you mentioned, and when I mentioned the DVD that taught me how to screen print way back then, sure enough, it was a Ryan Moore DVD.
It
back,
was.
back in the day. Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of talked about the inspiration of where the Stampinator came from. You talked about the 5-in-1 uses of it. I know personally, I saw it at shows here and there a little bit for a while, but it wasn't until I had a conversation with a decorator from Mooresville, North Carolina, and Mike, and he was like, no, this thing is next level. And I know he's always doing a lot of simulated color process prints. And he is adamant that like every shirt that leaves that shop, retail quality, a lot of retail merchandise for some big league sports is coming out of that facility. And he is printing with it, swears by it up and down. And that was like the first time that I heard somebody like truly swear up and down by this thing. And it's been, I think it's been a big part of focus in the industry pretty much since I've heard that from Mike down there. Have you seen any specific shops that even use it outside of the the 5-in-1, or is that where some of those uses came from, where it wasn't necessarily you, but some of the shops who are using Stampinators that started innovating with it too?
No, I mean, I feel like there's only so much you can do on the screen print press with it. So they were all the things that I was truly doing, transfers, in the beginning, and then matting fibers. But for me, when I was selling the Stampinator, people were like, they thought it was cool, but they were like, who in the heck's do it was basically, who in the hell's doing transfers anyway? Nobody does transfers. This is like 2015, 16.
And that was the screen print mentality for sure.
When COVID kicked in, it changed our industry forever.
Hmm.
It really truly has, because we were losing employees, we couldn't print jobs fast enough, and we resorted to transfers.
Hmm.
Transfers was the alternative. And then now we were converting. I came up with the concept of putting your top cover palette on your automatic with the rubber to convert your automatic into an inline heat press.
Hmm.
So, when I look at things, let's go back to who you were talking about. That's going to be Mike at Swell Inc.,
Hmm.
NASCAR shop. Mike, huge advocate of the Stampinator. He was showing different simulations of prints, right? And he had one which, since they are a NASCAR shop, he called it asphalt. And he said, "This is an asphalt print." And he's like, "This is your smooth print with the Stampinator." So it was on a fleece. And that's what blows him away, because their NASCAR shirts, they're printing huge prints all over. And he's
Tons of
using
colors too.
every
Yeah.
bit of 16 by 18 of the Stampinator with a ton of colors. And, he utilizes the stamp in so many different ways, whether it's stamping at the end or stamping in the underbase. He was a little, it was a little cumbersome for him in the beginning, but once you learn how to use it, if you're, I would say if you're an experienced printer, you can right out of the gate. But if you're somebody who had just bought their first automatic and they're learning how to print using the Stampinator, it can be a little cumbersome, because you're not using the right mesh count. Maybe you're not using the right inks. There's a lot of variables that go in to having a good print on a
Hmm.
t-shirt. A lot of people think when you're screen printing that you print into the t-shirt. We're not mashing that squeegee. We're using the edge of that blade. We don't want much angle. We want a little bit of flood to bring the ink across, not mash it through the screen, because we don't want to mash it into the shirt. We want to print on top of the shirt. The higher the screen mesh, the better the feel, right? The higher the screen mesh, the more you're going to save on ink. Lower mesh is higher ink consumption, right? So when you look at all those variables and factors that come in, you know, you're with the Stampinator, when you stamp your underbase and you print with a 230 underbase, you're printing on top of paper. That's how I look at it. It's amazing. There's no fibrillation, there's no fallout. You don't see all those little specks. You see a nice flat surface, and you print your top colors on. If you use the right white, and we're coming out with a white called Stamp White, and just one color white, that's it, or no other inks, but it works really well with the stamp. But when you stamp it, you can get away with pretty much one hit without using a highlight white.
Oh man, and get that great, like, vintage print, the one stroke, one hit. That sometimes you see the color through, but that's going to be nice and opaque with the stamp hitting down on it too.
Yeah, it's nice and opaque. It's really nice. Yeah, and it's a low bleed ink. It works on your cottons as well. It's pretty phenomenal. So, and it comes in at a low cost, $75 a gallon. So if you're buying your fives, it's like little 275, which isn't bad. And when I look at it, I want to provide things for people where, look, I got a business to run. I need to be profitable, right? But I also don't want to overcharge the screen printer. I understand our industry. I understand, the things that we go through and the sacrifices that we make. It's like I saw this video. It was great. Guy made a video on TikTok, and it was like, you know, people say to me, "Oh, you're a business owner." He's got his own apparel line, and he's a printer. And he's like, people are like, "Oh, you must get to go on great vacations. You probably get off for holidays." And it's like, no, I'm a business owner. I don't have vacations. I don't take vacations. Christmas, I work all the way up until dinner. I'm like, That's so true. Like,
Yep.
it's we're in this industry where, as a printer, every printer I talk to, everyone who has a company, they live and breathe their shop, whether they want to or not. You're here. You're here from 6 a.m., sometimes till 7. I'm here sometimes till 11. A lot of times I'm here till 11. I go home, although the last month I haven't been because it's been extremely hot, but I'll go home and have dinner with my family, and I'll come back up around 7:30. The wintertime, I'm up here till at least 11 o'clock for 5 nights a week, and then I come up on a Saturday morning. But I'm a workaholic and I love to work and I love to be creative and create new concepts and new products.
Yeah. And it's the labor of love, right? It's you get to use your passion. So what that old saying, like, find something you love doing and you never work a day in your life. Well, we still end up working through
So,
through it
so,
all.
so exactly what you said. My wife says to me, she says to everybody, "Oh, my husband, they're like, what do you do for a living?" She's like, "Oh, he's a hobbyist." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, because you always say you haven't worked a day in your life and you don't really dress nice. You just wear a t-shirt." And I said, "That's what's great about my hobby.
That's
I
the
get to go
industry.
to it's great." So when I go to a wedding, I just wear a jacket and a t-shirt because everybody knows, they all know I'm the t-shirt guy,
Yeah. Yep, you get
So
that moniker. You get that moniker every now and then. It's Dave the T-shirt guy. It's Jeff the T-shirt guy. When you talk about the Stampinator, right? And kind of tinkering, innovative, always working. What were kind of some of the improvements that you made over the years, coming from maybe that first prototype to where it is now, being manufactured by Hotronics?
yeah, so look, I am super grateful for everyone who has worked with me on this journey of creating the Stampinator. I had a long-term relationship with Geo Knight. They were the first guys I started out with. When we had the stamp that weighed 75 pounds, we had a lot of manufacturers were like, "Hey, you can't put that on our equipment, it's too heavy." So it took me about 6 months to kind of re-engineer to figure out how we could get it down under weight. And I was looking at different concepts that were out there with toaster ovens. They use a mica board that needs to be compressed, so when it heats up, it doesn't expand and burst. So we had a sandwich plate with insulation on a 1/4 inch piece of aluminum, and we would mash that mica board down. And we did that for about 2 years, but we were getting a lot of waves within the aluminum, because aluminum at like 400 degrees, it wants to and bend a little bit, right?
Well, that's not
when
good.
it And that's not good, especially when we're hitting a flat surface. So we uh we had a full cover over the stamp. I eliminated the cover, and then I had studs that came up on the heating element, 5 studs, and I made the change so you could go in and make the adjustments to re-level it if you had to, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
So we were doing that, and then I decided to use a 1/2 inch piece of plate aluminum to eliminate that. So we did. So we made change with 1/2 inch, and the weight went up about 7 pounds, which was okay. And the unit worked fantastic. It was every now and then, you get one where somebody had it up to 450 and bent it a little bit, right? Because again, aluminum gets to that certain heat point, it wants to start to warp on itself. And everything was great. It's Geonite products, components, and everything I was using, you know fantastic. I had nothing out there. But I realized, if I wanted to grow and get my product out worldwide, I needed a partner that would be able to really help me with that. And I'd met with Stalls a year prior, and we had talked, and never really did much. And then we connected, and finally we made this happen. And I got to tell you, it's one of the best things that Slant could have done, right? We have a Stampinator with a heating element that will never warp or bend. It's unbelievably amazing. Like, the surface is as flat as you can get it. If you're if you're not getting a flat surface off of our Stampinator, it's because your t-shirt pallets are bent or warped. And I'm not kidding you. Like, I am dead serious. Like, I am blown away. And, working with stalls and taking over the manufacturing, almost, weight's kind of been lifted off my shoulders because, you know, I have a company that understands engineering, and I can work directly with them, excuse me, on the changes that we need to make as we move forward. And, right out of the gate, the stamp came back and it worked flawlessly. They met, um, every criteria that we had in place as far as what we expected. They did that. And right now, we finally launched the stamp, and we launched in January, a soft launch, but the week before July, 4th, we launched, the stamp. So we are now selling stamps. Super excited. A lot of people, I've gotten calls, 4 or 5 calls already for people who have received their stamps. They love the silver. They love everything about it. And they're excited to, see what the stamp does for them within their business. So, and I know it's going to do well because I've been running the prototype that Stalls made for me a year and a half ago, and it's still on my press to this day. And it's amazing,
Rock solid. Good to hear.
rock
Yeah, because
solid. Yeah.
I know I've seen it pop up on social media at some events here and there. I saw it firsthand when we were at, it was screen printing when we were at the Impressions Expo this year. And that was kind of the first time that we really got to sit down and nerd out about some of the stuff that Stampinator enables and empowers decorators to do. We saw it at the Impressions Expo, and then you just had it at an event not too long ago down in Rock Hill, South Carolina, didn't you?
Yep. So we're in Rock Hill. It went over extremely well. We have a lot of people interested, and it's tough trying to get back to them. It's the busy season, but I just want to talk about some of the features on the stamp, which is great because Stalls, Wayu was at Stalls as one of their engineers, and Wayu is amazing. He put a limit switch in the stamp, so if you're not using the stamp for, let's say, 2 hours, it automatically will shut down. So if you leave your place of business and you forgot to turn it off, it automatically shuts down within 2 hours.
It's not just heating, sitting there
it's not
heating up.
just staying there on all day, right? The best part about it is the other great feature is we also now offer a 120 and a 240 version. So if you have that outlet and you have a dedicated outlet for the stamp on a 20 amp breaker, you can plug that right into your wall and run your stamp off of a 110 outlet, but it's actually a 120. So you can't run multiple circuits or units off of that one circuit. You need just the stamp, but it allows you to feed that extension cord across the floor if you have to.
Just like a typical heat press.
Just like a typical
don't want to be
press.
tripping any breakers.
Right. So when I look at all those features, that we've added to it, it really has enhanced the stamp for all the shops today, and I'm excited to see where it goes. My goal is, and most screen printers that have bought a stamp can contest to this, that not only do I talk to them and help them with Stampinator issues, screen burning, color separation, sim process. I've had a couple people tell me in the industry that are high up, like, you're one of the best separators I've ever seen. Like, your art is, it actually, when you say that you're going to sep a job and it's going to look like the computer screen and you take it to press, that's how it should look. Most people say, oh, we'll get there about 80% or 90%. No, you can get there 100%. There's separation software out there that does things for you, but it doesn't. Sometimes you lose a lot of those mid-tones or, the soft tones that you need to get. And you can only do that if you do a manual separation. But look, as a t-shirt printer, I'm like this, inspecting the shirt. The consumer and everybody else isn't going to be into that detail. But if we burn a screen and you have a portion of halftones that aren't making that fade, giving you 100% fade and it looks choppy, we're going to reburn that screen. I think when people are paying for something, I'm not the cheapest guy in town. I'm not the most expensive guy, but you're getting quality from me every single time. And
Mhm.
that's what keeps the customers coming back. A
Yep.
lot of people in this industry print like they're, they consider like, oh, we do a lot of contract printing. So we don't give them 100%. It's contract. Well, look, if you're a printer and you chose to do contract or you chose to do direct, give them all the same quality.
Mhm.
Like to me, I don't shortcut anyone. I give you, and I charge you for my service. That's the bottom line. And if I'm not happy with what I'm charging you, then I should be upset with myself as a business owner, right? I'm not. Why should I be upset with the end consumer? Or the person who's buying from me? I set things, I put things in place. I never let people dictate and tell me what they want. I tell them what they're going to get and what the price is going to be. Right.
Right.
That's it.
You build
It's my
value
business.
in your services, and I talk to decorators all the time who kind of are in that same boat. Like you shouldn't be racing to the bottom on price ever. It's a very, very, very slippery slope, and rarely anybody wins there. Build value in your services, whether it be that standard of quality of what's leaving your shop, because in many cases that's enough alone to combat any price pressure when you're talking about people in retail, right? You like when you're talking about reselling shirts to their end consumer, they are sitting on a whole bunch of financial risk if those styles and those shirts don't sell, and it's specifically because of a quality issue that they skimped on. That's awful, right? It's not a win-win for anybody. So building those services, and you mentioned the SEPs too. And when we talk
Hey,
about
real
screen
quick
printing,
before you go, I
yeah,
want to backtrack on what you just said because that was a good point on the retailers. So, as a screen printer, you need to know the industry. You need to know your outlets on who you're servicing. On retail, everyone in the industry on retail is pretty much on a wholesale between, let's just say, $8 and $12 a shirt, right? Because the retailer needs to mark that up either 3 times. In today's world, it might be 5 times. I haven't sold retail for a while, right? If they don't have the product and they don't have quality, then they can't keep their business open, right?
mhm,
So as a screen printer, understand your industry. If you're selling to, Joe's plumber shop, don't sell him a shirt at $8 because he might be buying 48 or 72. That 48 or 72 might go to him at 15 or $16 or maybe 18. But on the retailer, it might be $8, but they're buying 588. They might buy 588 of 3 designs and split it, but it doesn't matter. You need to know your business, you need to know the industry, and most importantly, you need to understand and know your cost of what it costs you to print a t-shirt. I
yep.
go in the shops, they don't even know what that is.
Nope. And that's like, yeah, we could get into a whole different discussion about pricing, cost calculations, knowing your overhead, knowing your operating expenses. And then even we've had discussions with decorators like that taking the next step when you look at hiring an employee, and especially going from like a sole proprietor to hiring employees, that could be a very overwhelming step, especially when you haven't been allocating funds like you're paying somebody before you hire somebody. And then it makes it
Exactly.
so much easier to like, well, I've already been setting this money aside as if I was paying somebody. Here, now it's going to this employee, and those employees should be generating more revenue for you. And otherwise, something's broken in that process. So much that we could get into, specifically in screen printing. And I always love nerding out with screen printing every now and then. I feel like we talk transfers a lot, but talking about the Stampinator, we have the opportunity to talk both transfers and of course screen printing as well. And you mentioned the SEPs too, which I feel like is a secret sauce. And if you're new to screen printing and maybe you're just using heat transfers, separations are essentially taking an image and taking the colors and separating them each to each individual screen. I have a screen sitting just on over there on the floor that I usually hold up with my squeegee just to illustrate things. But every single color in screen printing needs to go through a screen, and figuring out how to mix the colors. It's not just CMYK, right? It's
Right.
in many cases a lot more colors than CMYK to bring those details to life, right? And then it's so incredible to see it come to life. And it's something that, like here at Stalls, of course, even with our screen printed transfers, we handle for you, so you don't have to do it. But I know plenty of folks out in our audience and decorators have been screen printing for a long time. and understand it and really see the benefits of the Stampinator. I see this one here. This is a comment I'll pull up on our screen. Nurtured by Nature Studio. I would love to see the Stampinator in action. This is new to me. Just Googled it. So even though it's been out for a while, we're introducing the Stampinator to new audiences as we go. Jeff, before we wrap up here today, I do want to kind of give people some insight of how or when they could see a Stampinator, maybe live in person at upcoming shows, or maybe some shops that would be happy to have somebody in to take a look at the process of how a Stampinator truly impacts the business.
Yeah, so if you want to see the Stampinator in action, you can go to stampinator.com, click on demo, and schedule a demo. So we offer demos between 10 and 2, and that's usually on a Friday. So schedule a demo, and we'll give you a full demo. We're running rock presses, but it works on all presses, whether you're using an M&R, the Workhorse product, or the Anatol. It's a plug and play unit, and we made it so it fits all equipment out there, even Diamondbacks with side rails as well. And the Anatol is the side rail as well. So again, we're going to be in Orlando for Print United. That's, I believe, is in October. And then next year we'll put on a whole tour of trade shows. We'll probably do the top 4 main. Obviously, Long Beach we're always in Long Beach. So if, again, the best way to see it, stampinator.com, click demo.
And available now, like you mentioned, through any Hotronix distributor. So wherever you're getting your screen printing supplies or Hotronix heat presses, now carrying Stampinators.
Yep, Stampinator.com is carrying them as well. Yep.
And so, what's next for Stampinator? What are you working on? I know you're a tinkerer, you're a hobbyist, as your wife says. You're a innovator. What are you working on now? Any improvements to the Stampinator, different versions, or any new secrets that you might be able to let us in on?
So I do have a new stamp. So this is for all of my friends who own Rock U's, and I know some of you guys already have a stamp on there. And I've listened to some of the things that you guys were having issues with, and I developed a Stampinator for presses that the print head. So for the presses that you can't control the Stampinator on. So if you're running a the Eco or the Next, we can program that into the press. For all the Sportsmans and the Anatols and the Rock U's, we have a new product, and we have a couple of companies that are testing it now, and it's called Stampinator Air, and it's pretty amazing. And you can program it if you want it to hit your T-shirt while all of your print heads are down on the Rock U for say 8 seconds, and you want the stamp to only hit for a second. You can program it for a second now. So I've listened to everybody's concerns, and I can't wait to start producing Stampinator Airs for all those presses out there that really truly need it.
That's awesome. So is that pneumatically powered then with saying Stampinator Air?
Yep. So it's all pneumatic, and it still works off of our compression leveling springs that we have in there, and it's pretty amazing. I came in one Saturday. So it's weird because all of the ideas I have, like when I developed Stampinator, I literally woke up at 2:30 in the morning, had this crazy idea because I couldn't sleep, and I did a sketch of it, and then the next day I went into the garage and I made a cardboard cutout of what this thing looks like, and I still have it, the cardboard cutout, and I'll have to send you a video of it. But anyway,
oh yeah, I'd love to see that. That's awesome.
And I did a pencil sketch of exactly how this unit was going to work. And it's the same thing for the Stampinator Air. It just hit me one day. I was like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do to make this work. And the thing is, we don't have much room between the print head and the pallet. So there's only so much you can do with an air cylinder. But we made it work. And and I got a couple other things that I'm working on.
Top secret.
Yeah, top secret. But look, everything that I try to do you know, I'm not trying to, bash any of the other manufacturers out there, but I understand that, it's an expensive industry to get into, and I try to do things that work efficiently and to keep the costs down, right?
Mhm.
So you're not paying a fortune for something. I don't want to be that company that's like, oh yeah, you're paying, a ton of money for this, but I can tell you when
It's
you
worth
are
it. It's worth it.
when you're manufacturing, building things, and the raw material and the cost and what it costs to fabricate to do the fabrication on something. I got a Harley, I have Jeeps, I do all that myself. I know how many hours it takes to just do one little piece of something.
Mhm.
It's a lot of time, and when you look at the Stampinator, I think there's a total of like, well, back then it was 180 pieces, between screws and everything that you have. It might be more than that now with the Stalls products. I want to look into that, but you have to think all those things that you need to put together to assemble something to make that unit work, right?
Yeah.
It's labor intense to a certain extent,
And
right?
it's made in the
In
United
the
States.
USA. That is my biggest thing. I want an American made product. I want it here. I want the USA flag sticker on there, which by the way, we gotta put that on the stamp.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need, I just want that blue, red, white, and blue waving.
I'll call up Ben and weigh you right
Yeah,
after
well,
we end the
yeah,
podcast. We'll get it
we
on
need
there.
Ben, weigh you, and the sticker.
Yeah.
Right on the front of the on the control box. Be
Right on the
fantastic.
well, because that's something that, like, I know it's so top of mind for a lot of people now these days, is like the United States manufacturing, and like, oh yeah, even with best intentions, it's not coming back. So it's always so refreshing to see Hotronics really driving that. And the one thing, even for me, right, I know Hotronics is based in Pennsylvania. They have an incredible workforce of super intelligent and hardworking people there that make these heat presses and the Stampinator and those super straight heating elements. It's the reason why Hotronics is around, right? That precision application that really helps the quality of decoration and the longevity, right?
Yeah.
It ensures you that you're going to get a quality print that can meet the standards of even those highest demand retail customers. But it's made in the United States. The steel is the Pittsburgh Steelers steel. I'm a Browns fan, so I can't talk too highly of the Steelers, at least in public. But
Well,
it's so good to see.
when I went up there and Josh and Ben showed me the first stamp, they actually painted it gold and black.
Yeah. We'll
It was good.
get you an orange and brown one to be those Browns colors, just
Hey,
because.
look, we if you want it we could do a wrap for you. We could wrap it in the Browns colors, right? So,
There we go.
but yeah, look, again, just everything you touch base on, the Stalls manufacturing up in Pennsylvania. I've been up there. It's a beautiful facility. Great quality control. Everyone has been with the company for a long time, and to me that says something about Stalls, right?
Mhm.
I made a video back in January, and I said, if you're going to partner with a company, why not partner with a company that's been in business for 97 years? I think it's 97 years, right? And knows screen print products, right? I mean, you guys are in that industry for printers, whether
Mhm.
you're a DTF printer or a transfer, whatever it is, you need a heat press if you're doing, whatever you're doing. So when DTF came out, or not direct to film, DTG came out, direct to garment, we're using heat presses. We had 3 Stalls presses. Pre, you had to stamp it, and then you're printing it. It's whether you're printing that shirt, running it through a conveyor dryer, and you want to stamp it or you run it through the heat press at the end for heat tapping. Stalls has been providing that service for screen printers, and a lot of screen printers don't realize that they've utilized the Stalls products in so many different ways within their shops.
Yep. And
Right?
with how many screen printers even now, I know working in screen printing shops, and that was like the ethos of it. But now with the prevalence of direct to film, the advances in technology, and the kind of mindset of they are all tools in our toolbox. Nothing is
Yes.
killing screen printing, and it's the same with direct to garment. When direct to garment came out, oh, it's the screen print killer. Screen
Yeah,
print's still
absolutely.
around. Direct to film comes out. It's the screen print killer. Screen printing is still around. They are all just tools in the toolbox that really help decorators solve different problems or challenges for different size orders, right? And direct to film makes it so much more accessible, and in some cases a lot speedier than say than the fixed time of direct to garment. Especially when you talk about coupling it to an automatic carousel screen printing press with a Stampinator in line, and you're crushing out 5,000 pieces in what, a 6 to 8 hour shift right there. Like, that
Yeah.
is some serious efficiency bringing in with a minor investment. You're not really buying a whole new a whole new carousel press or anything like that. You're able to utilize the equipment you have with a different tool in your toolbox to solve a problem for your end customer. So
Yeah, absolutely. Look, two things I want to touch base on. One, the stamps, $6,000, 5,999, right? Your ROI on that is less than 3 months. You could actually, for every shirt you print in your shop, you could add 10 cents to every t-shirt that you sell, right? Do the math on how many shirts you're printing in your shop, and you're going to make your prints better for your customer, that you'll keep a customer for life, because there's no other company that's going to print the shirt and make it look as good the way the stamp does. I guarantee it. I never sold stamps to anyone in Maryland, because Maryland is my hometown and my business. I want to have the best prints I can possibly have.
nope, you
The
can't
other
have it.
the other part that I wanted to add, for all of my customers overseas, Europe, Asia, Australia, I have stamps all over. One thing I want to tell everyone out there, I now have the certifications that you guys have been asking for. So for all the shops, and it's a lot of them, that never bought a stamp because we didn't have the certification, we're going to have you
Oh no, we lost Jeff. He's talking ULCE certifications, that are the standard for not just the United States, but overseas and abroad too. We're going to hope Jeff gets back on with us here today. And we're going to wrap it up as we're nearing an hour here on the podcast. Really want to thank everybody for hanging out with us today, listening and tuning in, and leaving some comments and questions as we go through the entire, kind of the value of the Stampinator. And I loved Jeff's business advice here too, from being an entrepreneur himself, being an innovator, and really driving everything forward, not just for Stampinator and slant engineering or slant manufacturing. It is, for his own shop, his own customers too, walking through all of that with such a awesome kind of perspective from Jeff, because he does have a unique perspective in our industry, moving through, just being an employee at a shop to all the way to kind of owning a shop. And I loved and we got Jeff back, but I loved I was just kind of recapping a little bit of the story. You were talking UL and CE certifications.
Yep. Super excited about that. It's, like I said, it's gonna help a lot of people out there in the countries that really need that because of insurance purposes, and as well as inspection that they need. So I'm excited for that, and can't wait for that to happen. I think that's going to happen here at the end of July.
Awesome. So it's coming. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for hanging out today. I was saying, we love your business advice, your experience, the grit, the passion, everything you put forth into the printing industry, as well as the Stampinator, and leading the innovation in and just bringing these solutions to life for decorators. So thank you so much for hanging out with us here today, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And for all the screen printers out there that have a stamp, keep on stamping.
All right. And we're going to see everybody else next week, or in 2 weeks, here on the Heat Press for Profit podcast, every Thursday, live 3 p.m. But until then, happy pressing. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.